I'm sure you followed the story, Jonathan, of the DOJ and FBI looking at parents and basically going through the Patriot Act to exploit some of these counterterrorism procedures to track parents. I wanted to get your thoughts on that, and apparently now also the Department of Education becoming weaponized, and they're making the argument now that school districts that don't implement CRT, and if parents defeated at the ballot box, then that's somehow a Title IX violation, and as a result, the Department of Education can get its Civil Rights Division involved to implement it as some sort of in-run around parents. There is such use of these federal agencies in these local matters. I don't think I've ever seen it to this extent, and I wanted to get your perspective on this.
It's a gross abuse of power. The Attorney General abused his authority. He purposefully, based on the content of that memo, attempted to chill speech of parents. And then when we find out that he doubled down on the memo and actually allowed the implementation of its directive, which resulted in placing parents under espionage by the federal government, under surveillance by the FBI, that's enormously abusive. There's no role whatsoever for the federal government to exercise any jurisdiction over the role of parents in communicating their dissent to school boards. There's never been an exercise of that power. There is no such power under the Constitution that would allow it. So it is grossly abusive, and to argue in addition that there's somehow no right to argue against critical race theory. Critical race theory is Marxist indoctrination of youth. It's child abuse. And so they're standing up for child abuse on what? Civil rights grounds? Outrageous. There's no role to play under the civil rights laws for the federal government except to defend the parents' rights against child abuse, to the extent that the National School Board Association and others are working interstate to bring about a movement to indoctrinate students. Those people are the ones who ought to be investigated. They're the ones that ought to be subject to prosecution. They're introducing racism into the schools, which we have long held to be unconstitutional under the 14th Amendment equal protection provision. So the only role the feds have legitimately is going after those who are pushing this in an interstate way. And there are several groups that are doing that, both commercial enterprises profiting from it and academics who are intent on achieving this indoctrination of our youth. We have a right to stand up against it. We should. And those who have been promoting it in the Justice Department really should be ashamed of themselves and ought to be the subject of federal investigation themselves. That's an abuse of federal power without question.